Okay, so today we're going to talk some skill work, specifically shooting, and how to get better at it. Maybe not the best person to talk about this because I'm going to shit at it, but principles, they're still important and they're still present, so that's what we're going to talk about today. When you think about a skill session, you kind of want to think about it the same way you would a strength session, where you want some sort of structure to it and you want some sort of ability to progress each week. If you can't get them things, it's hard to see an improvement, see any change over time. So the first type of session we're doing, if you're thinking about improving skill, is just thinking about technique. So if you're working on your left foot, for example, you may want to go up against like the wall ball, you may want to go up against the catch net, and you're just focusing on, so like for me, what I'm doing, I'm just focusing on getting a good connection, kicking through the ball, following through on it. I'm not really worried about the outcome, I'm just more focused on the process of actually kicking the ball. Process nailed down, or somewhat nailed down, you only start training it and focusing a wee bit more on the outcome of it. So for example, when I'm working on the left leg, I'm setting up just different positions around here, 3 different, at left, centre and right, and giving myself just a certain amount of kicks at each of them cones, focusing on the process, what we were practicing earlier in that technique part, but then now trying to actually get a good outcome from it. The important thing with this, and one of the things I kind of learned, one of the important things with this too is sometimes there's a tendency, if you're going down to like practice free kicks or something, to like kick as many as you want from each side, which is good for building a bit of technique, but you want to get used to not being complacent with any balls that you get, and then that you do get, you go to the right technique and you kick it the way you would in the game. If you have a load of them sitting there in front of you, chances are you might get a wee bit complacent and go, well, I've got a few more to kick. So I'm only giving myself like 3 at each angle, and kind of nearly give yourself a score out of 3 on them, and then each week you try and beat that score and see if you're improving, and if you are, and if you're nailing them, then maybe you want to like increase the distance or increase the difficulty some way. So if you're clued in, you might be thinking, that's all well and good, but how can I recreate it in a match when I'm maybe having to mark a man or get by a man or run up and down the pitch and my legs are wrecked? How do you get the transfer then? And that's a really good question. And that brings us on to our third point, our third type of training for skill, which is trying to recreate some sort of match scenario. So in your training, obviously still focusing on technique, focusing on the outcome, but now you add in some more match scenarios. So that could be, for example, running onto the ball, hitting it at speed. It could be maybe trying to get by a man. It could be doing a set of runs and coming and hitting the point whenever your legs are wrecked. Trying to recreate those match scenarios is the next thing, and probably the most important if you want to get some transfer to the actual game. The important thing to remember when you're doing this too is, the better you are at the skill you're trying to improve, the more you're probably going to be wanting to spend in the match scenario side of things. You know, if your technique is really, really good, there's probably limited transfer from doing extra technique work, but there might be more transfer from doing the match scenario type drills and training sessions. Obviously you might be a wee bit limited right now because you can't get people to help you and you can't get down to do training sessions with your team, but I suppose try and be creative with that. If however you're kind of shit at the skill, like I was with my left foot, then you want to spend more time in the technique and just doing the repetition and focusing on the process, and then you get to the match scenario side of things. So, you know, trying to be right with that will dictate what type of training that you do. Recently that skill training is something that within Gaelic recently we've really kind of fallen away from, forgotten about. I definitely have, and maybe in some ways contributed to that through strength conditioning channels. But I always do wonder, do we spend too much time in S&C work and maybe not enough time in the skill? I think it's a question that maybe needs to be asked and something that needs to be thought about. It's much easier to do a strength session because you know from the last week if you've got stronger or not, whereas with a skill session it's hard to know if you've actually improved your skill. So I think following some sort of structure like that with your training, where hopefully you can see some sort of progression each week and you actually have a structure to the session, will sort of allow you to maybe spend a bit more time in the skill work and hopefully see some improvement on it. But you know, if you can improve your basic skills or make some weaknesses a wee bit less weak, then that can only benefit you on the pitch. So also today you get an extra treat. I am testing some 1 rep maxes tonight in the gym, so I thought I would show you that there as well. I've kind of been going I've been following a specific program just that I read up for the past 5 weeks, so kind of only testing, just see where I'm at, and I'm hoping there should be some improvements on the 1 rep maxes. And doing this testing isn't really all that essential. It's not really going to be that important to my current program or future programs, but it's nice to see where you're at, and it's nice to see if you're improving in terms of your strength, or you're not improving. I feel like I have. I feel like I'm actually stronger now than I've ever been before. Even with the ACL, I think on the deadlift and squat I should be stronger, so I'll be disappointed if I don't beat them figures tonight, but I feel stronger anyway, so it's going to be interesting to see where they're at. So that's the testing done. Pretty happy with it. I had a PB and everything except the squat. I've actually never really done a max box squat before, so I didn't know what to base it off. But you know, this is now 5 months post surgery, so to be kind of hitting heavier weights than I was before is a nice sign of progress, and nice to see that things are moving on. None of them weights are incredibly strong or heavy, but doesn't really matter. It's all relative to you and where you're at, and can't compare. Comparison's a thief of joy. So yeah, I'm happy, and it's nice to see some progress, and probably a good indication that even if you do get setbacks, i.e. injuries, sometimes they can be a platform to be better than what you were before, if you have the right mindset towards it. So yeah, happy with that. So that's us. See you in the next video. Hope it was helpful. If it was, you can let me know. And in the comments, you can fire any video suggestions on to me.